Okay, checking caster. And basically what caster is this ball joint is behind this one. So if you draw a line through here, it's going to angle back. And if I take my handy dandy 1x4, everybody should have a 2-foot 1x4, a couple of these, because this is important for checking your alignment in various conditions here. If you put it on here, you can see how this slopes back. Similar to the rake on a motorcycle and caster are exactly the same thing. So this is actually set to 8 degrees. Both sides should be 8 degrees, so we're going to check that. I've got an app on my phone here. I've got a regular professional set of angle indicators, but the average person doesn't have those. So there's an app you can get for your phone. This is an Android, so it's called Angle Meter, and that's exactly what it is. I'm going to lay this against here, and let me point a few things out here. There's kind of an angle here, an angle iron that's welded to this square tube, and then there's a couple little struts that stick off here that the ball joint is bolted to. You don't want to really be on top of this angle. You want to be on the little angle here, little angle iron. And same thing up here. So if you take the 1x4, and it can lean in a little bit of an angle like this, and here it's up against the little angle iron. Here it's against the angle iron here. I'll take my meter, which you can't see, but trust me, it says 97 degrees. So that means there's 7 degrees of caster. And that's fine. 7 to 8, that's an acceptable margin. And actually, a lot of these I set at 6 degrees. The main thing is if they're different by any large degree, it's gonna make the bike pull. And whichever side has less caster is the side it pulls toward. So if that one's 7 degrees and this one here is 4, it's gonna pull to the left. Now there is you can be off a little bit, 1 degree. So let's see what this one says. 97 degrees. So these are both exactly the same. Now if I was going to go to adjust this, say it was off, what I would do is I made up a couple of these shims, and all they are is a piece of 18 gauge steel that I bent in my my little press back there, cut a notch in them, and what I would do with this, let me move the camera here so you can get a visual on this. Okay, what I would do is I would loosen these 2 bolts here. Okay, you don't take the nuts off, just loosen the bolts. And here again, we'll just get this one loose. Now one thing you're going to notice, it's pulling away right now, so we probably want to stop right there. Now you see there's a gap here because the shock is actually pushing the wheel out. These little scissor jacks, if you can get these, you know, pretty reasonable, and they're handy. I use them, I've got about a half a dozen of them here. Actually I got 8 of them, I guess. And I use them for basically everything. I lift the bikes up with them, I get everything squared away. Any kind of adjustment I have to do, I usually use 2 or 3 of these on a frame. So what you want to do is right where this tube is here, stick the jack underneath that. And you notice that this is actually kind of tipped down right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jack it up until that squares away, which it did right there. So I'm kind of on neutral ground right there. And then I'll take my little shim and say if I want to increase the caster, I'll just put this in the back here. And it's got this little lip here to prevent it from falling through. So I'll just set that in there, tighten it back up, and what that's going to do is it's going to kick everything forward. If I want to decrease the caster, which you normally don't do, I would stick this in the front. And I would twist this back so that the caster would be decreased. And that's really all that's to it. Then you tighten everything up and you're a done deal. You can also make shims, and what I did here is I just took a bunch of washers and just used my little angle grinder there with a cutting blade and just cut these out. Now the problem with this is you need a magnet. So when you put these in there, it's really hard to hold them in place. You notice that one already fell out. So you almost need a magnet to hold them in place while you tighten it up. So the shims that I showed you before, if it comes to a point where you have to do an adjustment, if you feel something's not right, I can either send you those or you can make these pretty easy. Like I say, it's just tin bent at a 90, and you cut a notch in there and they just sit right in place. And then you tighten everything up and your caster is set. And normally a piece this thick, which is about the width of a standard washer, will add about 1.5 degrees out here. So if you put 2 of these in there, you're going to be 3 degrees. And you know, that's pretty much, you'll probably never have to adjust that, but in case you know, I missed it or something happened, or you hit something real hard and it tweaked things a little bit, you know, this is something you might want to do. So anyway, that's really all that's to setting the caster. Camber, I set that pretty close. The reason I said the bike should be level is it does make a difference on camber. When you check the camber, which you basically do with the same tool. And let me get over here where you can see it better. And here again, use the same instrument. You just stick this piece of wood on here and put your gauge on there. And it says it's pretty much 90 degrees. Oh, it's going to go there. It was upside down, so 89, 90, so it's about 89.5 degrees. 90 is okay. This is probably fine. In fact, it's probably a little bit off because the bottom A-arm is still loose. Normally it's 89 degrees, which would be 1 degree positive. And both sides should be about the same. There is a margin of error. I mean, there's always a tolerance factor. So if one is 90 degrees and one is 89, that's fine. I don't like to see negative caster and camber. Camber. Negative camber is when the front leans in. Now that does give you better traction going around corners, but it also makes the bike a little jumpy. So I don't really like to do that. I like to put positive camber in there for a couple of reasons. They handle better, the tires wear better, and you actually give up a little traction going around the corner. And that's important. I designed these things to understeer, which means if you go crazy and you get yourself in trouble, the front will break loose before the back. It's a lot easier to recover from an understeer than it is an oversteer. Once you lose the back of the bike, you pretty much lost all your hope because you lose control. If you lose the front, you'll feel it. You immediately feel if the front end's getting a little loose well before it actually comes loose. And you can correct by just basically stopping whatever you're doing. If you're going fast, slow down. If you're turning, don't turn so hard. If you're braking real hard, stop braking. It's kind of an automatic response. But I designed them so that that's what they'll do. That, you know, it's more logical handling, I guess. I would say. Typically 1 degree is where I try to confine myself. So that's kind of just an informational thing. That's really nothing you would ever worry about. And even setting the caster, you know, that's something, like I say, if, you know, there was some kind of encounter with a raccoon or a billy goat or something. But otherwise, you know, that would not need to be adjusted either. So anyway, that's just kind of an informational thing.